Hello and welcome to another Stride3D video. This video is going to be a quick one. We are going to be improving our code that we created in the last tutorial. And just to recap, in our last tutorial, we've created an API that we can use to store and retrieve the game data. And for this API, we needed also to create some services in the game code. And this service is what we are going to be changing. We are going to be implementing what is called the Singleton pattern. This is a programming pattern that ensures that only one object instance is available for the whole lifetime of the application. First thing we need to do is to turn on our API so we can run and test our game. So let's do that. I have my API project open here in Visual Studio Community, and I'm just going to run the API. And it's now running, so we can just minimize the window and go back to our game. And let's open the game in Visual Studio. So I'm going to just close everything and show you step by step. What we are going to be modifying is going to be the service that we created. So in the services folder, we have the API service. And this is the service that allows us to store and retrieve data from the API. So let's open this file. And before I explain what we are going to modify, I'm just going to run the game. And as you can see here, the iScores are being fetched from the API and shown here. This counts as one access to our API service. And if we play and we make some score, and now we are prompted to save our score. As we press confirm, then we are again accessing the API service because we are storing that data. So let me show you this in real time in the code. Going back to our API service, we are going to put a breakpoint here in the API service constructor, and we are going to run the game. And you see right away the API, the breakpoint here is hit and we are stopped in the constructor. And this means that we are creating a new instance of this API service. And let's continue. So the game runs and let's play, and we are going to make some points again. So 50 points, and we are prompt. Let's put something here. And as we confirm, we are again creating a new instance of this API service class, or we are creating a new object of this class. So let's continue. And again, we are hitting again the breakpoint because now we return to the start menu and we access the API service to retrieve the latest iScores. So again, we are hitting this API service. As you can see, every time we hit this API service to new up a new instance of this class, a new object, we are allocating some memory in our system. And this happens multiple times. And as you can imagine, this can be a performance hit, especially if you have a complex game and we are creating objects in this fashion. So what can we do to solve this problem? Well, we can create a static class in this case, and we actually did that in the score manager. The score manager is a static class, so you can see how it works here. But we are going to be going a step forward, and we are going to be implementing the Singleton pattern. The Singleton pattern permits us to instantiate one object and then reuse it through the lifetime of the game. So every time we will be retrieving the instance that we created the first time and reusing that instance every time. We are not expanding the memory of our system and creating that object multiple times. And again, for this simple game, we could implement here a static class for the API service. For more complex games, we should implement something like a Singleton pattern. But of course, this depends, and I leave it up to you to decide what's best in your case. I'm going now to implement the code for our Singleton pattern and explain at the end. And this is it for our singleton pattern implementation. So 2 lines of code, and we've changed the constructor from public to private. And let's look at what we have created here. Only when the instance is accessed the first time, then this will be created, this object. Next, we are adding the instance value to the instance field, public field here. So when we access our API service class, we will have a public attribute, which is the instance attribute. And now the only thing we need to do is to find where the API service was being created and modify the code to read the instance attribute from the API service class. So let's do that. Pressing Ctrl Shift F, and we open our find and replace window, and we will type in new API service, and we see that in the confirm button click file, we are creating a new API service, and also with the show iScores. And that is, of course, correct, because we are accessing the API service every time we confirm to send the data, and also when we want to see the iScores. So let's double click on this line here, and we will be sent to this file, and here we have it. So now the only thing we need to do is to just access the class API service, and now we have the instance property here. And we'll do the same for the show iScores, again accessing the instance attribute. And let's save this, and now let's test our game. Let's go back to our API service, and let's put a breakpoint in the API service constructor, and let's run the game. And we are hitting the API service construction the first time because we are showing the iScores in the start menu of our game. And let's continue. Here we are. Let's play the game, and let's just get caught this time to return to the start menu. And you see that this time we didn't hit the breakpoint of the API service constructor because we are using the object that we instantiated the last time. So the first time that the game began. But let's test it further. So let's play. This time let's make some points. And let's get caught so we can get prompt to save our points. Let's enter some name, confirm. And again, we did not hit the private constructor of our API service. And this is because we are reusing the object that we created the first time that the game loaded, and we are not creating any more of those API service objects that we were creating in our previous code. So really easy, and this concludes the implementation of the singleton pattern. And as a bonus, I've noticed something here. So you see that in our API service, we are accessing this information of the API base URL. And I was wondering, wouldn't it be nice if we had this in, for example, a game settings file somewhere in the root of our project? I think it would be a nice idea to do that. And we can, I don't know, if we had multiple APIs that we were accessing or other configuration, we could access that file. Something like an app settings file that we find in some other .NET projects. So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is to create a appsettings.json file in the root of our project. So in the root of the RPG game, I'm going to add a new item, and I'm just going to call it the app settings, and it's going to be a JSON file. And let's create a JSON object here. And this is just going to contain a variable called API base URL, and is going to contain that URL that we use to access our API. And this is going to be our first configuration. Let's save this. And next we are going to need some .NET packages that we are going to use to access the configuration file. So let's go to our game root folder, right click on the root folder and manage NuGet packages. And we are going to browse and look for a couple of packages. So the first one is going to be the Microsoft Extensions configuration. We can install this one, apply. And the next one is going to be the Microsoft extensions configuration.json. Install this one, apply. And also we need to go back to our RPG game root folder. So the root folder of our game, click twice. And inside here, we will need to add a couple of lines to include our app settings file into our compilation. So let's do that next. We are adding a new item group and we are updating our app settings .json file. If it's not creating, we want to update it, and we also want to preserve the newest. So always, if we make some changes, we want to overwrite the old one with the new one, and this is what this code is doing. So let's save this. And we are going to be creating also a new service. This service is going to be the configuration reader service. So let's add a new class and let's call it the configuration reader. This is going to be a static class. And we are going to be accessing the Microsoft extensions configuration that we've installed. And this is going to be creating a configuration builder, which gets our current directory path and also adds a JSON file, which is our app settings.json file. And this will, every time we want to get the configuration, we will access this static class. And also we will be getting the content from our app settings.json. So let's save this. And the last thing we need to do is to modify our API service to read from our configuration reader the app settings content. Let's go back to our API service and we have our API base URL up here that we are in the construction. We are hard coding it here, but we are going to access our configuration reader and read from the app settings file. So let's do that next. And that's it. And now it's time to test our code. So let's use this breakpoint here and let's run the game. And of course, the first time we are hitting the API service breakpoint to create our API service object the first time. And we are going to step through these lines of code. So getting our HTTP client. And also here we are going to access our configuration reader. So let's step into this one and we are inside the static class that we've created and we are going to continue here. So we are now getting the current directory path and also reading from the app settings JSON file. So let's go and we are returning this content from the app settings JSON file. And we are getting an error and let's see what it says here. Let's go back to app settings. Oh, okay, I see. This should be a string like this and also remove that. And let's save this and let's stop the game. Let's run it again. And let's step through this code. So let's go into the configuration, step through, and now we are getting the app settings.json content. And let's continue. So let's go over the variable here. And if we go and then we see we have the value, which is the API score. So API base URL is returning the value of the URL. And this should be running. Let's continue. And yes, everything is running. So if we play and we go back to our start menu and everything is working as expected. And there you have it. So now we have a app settings.json file that we can have many types of settings inside here, and we can reuse it in our project, in our game project. So that concludes this quick video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Any questions or suggestions, please leave it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. Thank you very much and see you next time.